The immigration officers want to see that you have taken real steps. People often see the E-2 visa as only for investors. If you avoid these mistakes, you will greatly increase your chances of success with the E-2 process.
Hello, Mr. Hassan. Great to see you again. How have you been?
Good, Ömer. How are you doing?
I'm glad to hear that. Today, we're talking about the E-2 investor visa, a topic you've answered countless questions about. This conversation will hopefully become a go-to resource for anyone who wants to learn more about E-2. Let's jump into our first question. How much do you actually need to invest for the E-2 visa? I've heard people ask if amounts like $30,000 or $40,000 are enough. What do you think?
That's a common question, Ömer. There's no really set amount for investment. The investment should be significant and substantial compared to the business you are starting or buying, if you're buying an existing business, right? So in general, investing around $100,000 or more is typically seen as more serious. However, smaller amounts can also still be considered based on the business type and specific situations.
Let's talk about who can actually use the E-2 visa. Is it just for the main investor, or can employees benefit from it too?
People often see the E-2 visa as only for investors, but it can also apply to employees. Like to qualify, employees must be from the same country as the investor and hold a managerial position or have specialized and essential skills.
Oh, so if I have a key employee with unique or managerial skills, they might qualify under my E-2 umbrella as well?
Exactly, Ömer. Just to give you an example, right? Let's say you are expanding your logistic company to the US and need an operations or general manager who understands your unique supply chain model. This manager might potentially be eligible for an E-2 employee visa, but to qualify, you must show their deep knowledge of your logistics systems, expertise, vendor relationships, and operations is essential for running this business and cannot be easily found in a local workforce.
If I want an E-2 visa, should I apply at a US consulate abroad or try to change my status while I'm already in the country? What's your take on that?
So, if you're outside the US, right, you need to go through a consulate process to get your E-2 visa. But if you are already in the US with a valid and lawful status and you haven't violated your status, your intention of the status, you can technically change to an E-2 status without leaving the country. But keep in mind that changing your status while in the US only allows you to stay in E-2 status. It just doesn't give you like actual E-2 visa stamp in your passport. So let's say if you leave the United States later on, you will need to still visit a US consulate in your home country to get a visa before you can return.
Which means if I plan to travel internationally for business or personal reasons, it might be simpler to just get the visa from the start, right?
That is correct, Ömer. That's advisable and practical, and most of the times it's ideal. If you frequently travel in and out of the country, it's usually easier and more practical again to get an E-2 visa from the consulate.
Can you get a green card if you have an E-2 visa? People often assume the investment track means a direct path to permanent residency.
I wish it were that simple, Ömer, but the E-2 visa is really a non-immigrant status that only allows you to stay here temporarily, right? It allows you to work and run your business in the US, but it just doesn't automatically lead to a green card status. Think of it as like a temporary option. Great for starting a business, but not a direct path to permanent residency.
So if I'm on an E-2, there's no official upgrade button to become a permanent resident?
That's correct. But there are some other options here. Some investors may potentially switch to the EB-5 investor program, right? If they raise their investment to the required amount. Others with specific skills or background might qualify for some other EB categories. So you may eventually apply for a different category that might provide a permanent residency rule.
Another big topic people ask about is family. If someone gets an E-2 visa, what does that mean for their spouse and kids? Can they work, go to school? How does that all work?
So a spouse can work in the US for any employers or be simply a self-employed once they get their E-2 dependent status approved. This approval just allows them to work anywhere again, not just with your E-2 company. Children can maintain also their E-2 status until they turn 21 years old and they can go to school.
Mr. Hassan, a topic that seems to come up often is the business plan. Why is it so crucial for the E-2 visa? and what exactly should be in it?
So the E2 visa is all about investing in a real active business, right? So immigration authorities, whether at the consulate or USCIS, want to see that you have done your homework and made a firm investment in your E2 3D company. So a strong business plan shows that you are prepared. You're not just speculating here. It just includes a lot of details like real expenses, investment plans, projections, strategies, and your goals in hiring.
Got it. So, it's not just about having an idea, it's about demonstrating exactly how you'll make that idea profitable and sustainable for at least the next 3 or few years.
Exactly, Umar. If your plan includes clear goals with solid market research, right, and a way to make a profitable business, it will help your E2 application succeed.
Is it okay if I just keep my investment funds in the company's bank account without actually spending them yet? I mean, does that still count as invested?
Well, the E2 rules state that your funds must be at risk, right? This means you need to show that you're actively using that money in your bank account for your business. You can do this by buying equipment, hiring US employees, like purchasing from US suppliers, renting an office or a warehouse, or spending this money for your professional and marketing services.
So basically, just parking the cash in a bank account and calling it a day won't cut it?
Exactly. The immigration officers want to see that you have taken real steps to start or buy an existing business in the US, right, Omer? So if the money is just sitting in the bank account, that typically doesn't convince them that you are fully invested in your business. And you don't necessarily have to spend all your money, right? But you must show that your funds are irrevocably risked for your E2 company.
Got it. So, the idea is that you should be putting your money where your mouth is, making some tangible commitments to show you're serious.
Correct, Ömer. Show invoices, contracts, or receipts that prove you have already used or in the process of using those funds for your business. That is the best way to make sure your E2 application looks strong and approvable.
Mr. Hassan, I've heard some people say, why not just buy a few properties and get an E2 that way? Is it really that simple?
In most cases, the answer is no. The E2 is really meant for active and real investments, right? So, like businesses that create jobs and contribute back to the economy. Simply owning a residential or commercial property or a land doesn't usually meet that standard. However, if you're doing a real estate in a more hands-on way, like running a property management company or developing properties, flipping and renovating houses with active involvement, then it may work. But you need to show that there's a real active business operation involved in here.
Mr. Hassan, let's switch gears and talk about common pitfalls. What are the top mistakes you see people make when applying for the E2 investor visa?
Over the years, I've seen a few issues here. First, like having an investment that is either too small or just doesn't make sense for the type of business you're investing. If the capital isn't substantial or realistic, it raises eyebrows at the consulate, right? Number two, a weak or incomplete business plan, right? If you haven't put in the effort to detail finances, market analysis, your hiring plans, it's also a red flag. Three is thinking of E2 as a passive investment, like just putting money somewhere and expecting automatic approval, right? We talked about this before. It has to be an active business. And number four, submitting documents that are either missing or contradict each other. Consistency is huge here. You want your business plan, your business model, and your numbers to line up.
That makes perfect sense. So, to summarize, make sure you invest enough, have a solid business plan, show active involvement, keep your documents thorough and consistent, and think long term.
That is correct. If you avoid these mistakes, you will greatly increase your chances of success with the E2 process.
Let's say I actually formed an LLC in the US a while back, but it's been basically dormant. Does having that existing entity help my E2 application in any way?
Possibly so. Having an established business or a company can definitely help here. But if you are only actively using it, right? So consular officers want to see that you are making real efforts. If your company is just sitting on paper and not doing any business, it won't make any difference here.
So it's not automatically beneficial unless I actually show that it's active and has real plans to grow?
Exactly, Omer. Only if you plan to inject some capital into your business, right? Invest money, hire employees, or start new projects, you need to show that your business has real potential here. While your existing businesses might help, the officer still needs to see that your business is real, operating, and active.
Can you renew or extend E-2 visas? I know some visas have strict time limits, but how does it work with E-2?
The E-2 visas are usually issued for 2 to 5 years, depending on the treaty and the consulate. The good news is that if your business remains active and somewhat profitable, you can always keep renewing this visa, right? There's no upper limit here. Like we mentioned before, if you can show that your business is running well, creating jobs, you implement your business plan, you are filing your taxes, you're making a profit, you can likely get another extension. Just remember to keep your active real investment status here.
Once I get my E-2 approved, can I start working on my business right away? Or do I have to wait for anything else?
Well, the good news is once your E-2 visa or a change of status gets approved, you can then start your business activities right away. There's no waiting period. In fact, the sooner you can show your business is growing, the better, obviously. So you're fully allowed to carry out your business plan, maybe hire more staff here, maybe grow your operations as soon as everything is finalized.
Well, Mr. Hasan, I think we've covered a ton of ground here on the E-2 investor visa. For those who've been watching all this time, do you have any final tips or insights you'd like to share?
Yes, Umar. First, plan ahead, right? This includes your budgeting, your business model, where you want to initiate your business in the US or where you want to live in the US with your family members, what industry, your timeline for moving to US. Next, keep detailed records. Organized documents and financial statements will make this application process much easier and smoother. Do not hesitate to get a professional help early in this stage, maybe even before you form your company, because a good team of lawyers, accountants, maybe business consultants can prevent many problems later on. We need to highlight an important part of the E2 application here as well, showing where your investment money comes from. You must also explain that your investment is legitimate and your investment amount is coming from legitimate resources. So our office can also help you prepare this entire application package, including this important documentation.
Those are fantastic points, Mr. Hasan. Thank you so much for taking the time to explain all of this. And to everyone who's been watching, we really hope this conversation has helped answer your questions about the E-2 visa. And if anyone out there still has questions or wants personalized advice, don't hesitate to reach out to our law firm. We're here to help guide you through every step of the process. In the meantime, if you found this video helpful, please like it, subscribe to our channel, and share it with anyone else who might need this information. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.